There is a squirrel in your yard right now that knows exactly who you are. Not in the vague way most people imagine animals noticing humans, treating every person as roughly the same blurry shape moving near the food. It knows your face. It has been watching you specifically, every time you step out the back door, every time you cross the porch, every time you so much as glance through the kitchen window, and it has built a detailed mental model of who you are and what you tend to do. Researchers studying squirrel cognition have only in the last decade begun to understand just how much these animals process about the humans in their lives, and the conclusions, frankly, are much stranger than most people are prepared to accept. Welcome back to Backyard Wildlife Mind. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at every squirrel that visits your yard. Today, we're walking through 8 signs that the squirrels in your yard have been studying you, what they've decided about you, and what that means for the quiet relationship forming right outside your door. Stay with me from beginning to end, because sign number 6 is something biologists did not expect to see happen in a backyard, and the final sign, number 8, is the one that I think will stay with you longer than anything else in this video. Sign number 1. The squirrels are already there before you've done anything. You haven't opened the seed bin, you haven't stepped onto the porch, you haven't made a sound, and yet you look out the window and there they are. One on the fence post you always pass, another at the base of the tree closest to the door, a third sitting up on its haunches at the edge of the lawn looking toward the house.
Most people assume this is coincidence. It is not. Squirrels, particularly the eastern gray squirrel that visits most yards across North America, have remarkable spatial and temporal memory. Researchers at the University of Exeter and at Berkeley have shown that squirrels build mental maps of their territory that include not only the location of every tree, every cache, and every escape route, but also the timing of significant events. The arrival of a familiar human at the same hour each day becomes part of that map. They learn your schedule. They orient themselves toward the place where you usually appear before you appear, because their internal sense of when has placed your arrival within a window. If you've ever stepped outside in the morning and felt almost watched, almost expected, that feeling is not in your head. You have been factored into a small animal's daily understanding of the world. That is not a small thing. That is recognition built over weeks and months of observation. Sign number 2. The squirrels respond differently to you than they do to anyone else. The next time someone unfamiliar walks into your yard, watch what the squirrels do. In nearly every case, they pull back. They freeze on the trunk of a tree, head down, tail flat against the bark. They retreat to the high branches. The bolder ones may give a sharp warning sound and disappear entirely for several minutes. When you go out, if you have been calm and consistent in your yard, the response is categorically different. Some squirrels stay where they are. Some retreat only a few feet, then turn back to watch you. Some don't even pause what they were doing. The contrast is striking once you start looking for it, and it is not random.
Research published on gray squirrel cognition has demonstrated that these animals can distinguish between individual humans by visual features of the face, particularly the upper face, and that they update their behavior toward each individual based on past experience. A person who has consistently behaved in a non-threatening way is filed away in a different mental category than a stranger. Even more striking, this categorization is robust to changes in clothing, hats, and posture. The squirrel is not just recognizing your jacket, it is recognizing you. When the squirrel in your yard relaxes around you while tensing around someone else, what you are watching is the result of a small, watchful animal having decided, after careful and repeated observation, that you are safe. Sign number 3. They make eye contact and they hold it. This one is easy to miss until you start paying attention, and then you cannot stop seeing it. Stand still in your yard sometime when a squirrel is on the ground or on a low branch nearby. Watch for the moment when it stops what it's doing, lifts its head, and turns to look at you directly. Not a quick scan, not a peripheral glance, a deliberate, sustained look at your face that lasts 2, 3, sometimes 4 seconds before it goes back to whatever it was doing. Squirrels, like most prey animals, have eyes positioned on the sides of their heads, which gives them an enormous field of view, but means that looking at something head-on requires turning the head to bring one eye fully forward. That is an act that costs them. It takes attention away from scanning for predators. It is an investment of focus.
When a squirrel chooses to give you that focus, Especially when it does it repeatedly across multiple visits, it is studying you specifically. Naturalists who have worked with habituated squirrels describe what they call investigative orientation, the act of a squirrel positioning itself to get a clear view of a particular human, often when that human is doing something slightly new, wearing something different, or moving in an unfamiliar way. They are checking on you. They are updating their model of you. There is something quietly extraordinary about being studied that closely by a creature that weighs less than a pound, and the fact that it has chosen to do so at all, rather than simply fleeing your presence, tells you a great deal about what it has already concluded. Sign number 4. They track you as you move around the yard. Try this if you have not before. Walk a route through your yard, from the back door to the garden, then over to the feeder, then to the far corner. If the squirrels in your yard know you, really know you, many of them will reorient as you move. The one that was facing the fence will turn to face you. The one halfway up the tree will scoot around the trunk just enough to keep you in view without flying out of the tree entirely. What you are watching is called subject tracking, and it is part of how squirrels monitor the individuals in their environment that matter to them. Predators are tracked, of course, but squirrels also track individuals they have categorized as safe, because the behavior of a safe individual is still important information. If you suddenly act differently, reach toward a part of the yard you do not usually go near, raise your arms, move quickly, the squirrel wants to know about it immediately, so it can decide whether its assessment of you needs to change. This means something important. You are on a mental list, not a dangerous list, a meaningful one. You are a known individual whose behavior is worth following, and that ongoing attention is one of the clearest indicators of how completely you have been integrated into the small territorial world of the animals living just beyond your back door. Sign number 5. They have told other squirrels about you. This is the one that people find hardest to believe at first, and it is one of the most rigorously supported. If a single squirrel in your yard has classified you as safe or as a reliable presence, that information does not stay locked inside one animal's head. Squirrels are far more social than most people realize. They observe one another constantly. They watch how other squirrels react to specific stimuli, to specific places, to specific people. Studies on social learning in tree squirrels have shown that younger animals adjust their behavior toward humans based on watching how older, more experienced squirrels respond. A squirrel that has never personally interacted with you may already be treating you as familiar simply because it has watched its neighbors do so. And the network does not stop at the species line. Squirrels eavesdrop on the alarm calls of birds. Birds eavesdrop on the alarm calls of squirrels. A jay that sees a squirrel relaxed in your presence is taking that information in. A chickadee that hears no warning chatter when you step outside is registering the absence as meaningful.
Your reputation in your yard is not held by one squirrel. It is distributed across a small, watchful, deeply interconnected community of animals who communicate with each other constantly. The peace you experience when you step outside, the sense that the yard simply continues being itself when you appear, is not a coincidence. It is a collective endorsement. They have, in their own way, vouched for you. Sign number 6. They have started caching food where you can see them. This is the one that biologists did not expect to find happening in backyards, and it is one of the strangest revelations in the recent literature on squirrel cognition. To understand why this matters, you have to understand something about how squirrels normally protect their food. Squirrels are obsessive cachers. A single eastern gray squirrel may bury thousands of nuts in a single autumn across hundreds of separate locations, and they do not bury those nuts in front of just anyone. Researchers have documented behavior known as deceptive caching. When a squirrel notices that another squirrel, or any animal it perceives as a potential thief, is watching it bury food, it will go through the entire motion of caching while actually keeping the food in its mouth. It pretends. It digs a hole, leans into it, covers the empty hole with leaves and dirt, and walks away with the nut still hidden in its cheek pouch, planning to bury it elsewhere where it has not been observed. This is not instinct. It is theory of mind. The squirrel is modeling what the watcher knows. Now, here is what changes everything about that fact.
When a squirrel begins burying food openly in your presence, when it digs a real hole, deposits a real nut, covers it carefully, and walks away, fully aware that you are right there watching, it has done something extraordinary. It has decided that you do not belong in the category of thief. You are not, in its mental model, a creature that will dig up the cache after it leaves. That is a level of trust that squirrels do not extend lightly.
If you have ever watched a squirrel cache food in your yard while looking right at you, you were not watching a random act. You were watching an animal that has carefully reviewed the evidence of who you are and concluded that its food is safe in your presence. Few people understand how remarkable that conclusion really is. Sign number 7. The alarm calls around you have quieted. Squirrels are vocal animals, far more vocal than most people realize, and the sounds they make around humans are one of the clearest readouts of how those humans have been categorized. If you stop and really listen the next time you step into your yard, you will start to hear it. There is the sharp staccato call, often described as a cook, that squirrels produce when they spot a ground predator like a cat or a fox. There is a longer, drawn-out quah that signals a more general or sustained threat. There is the soft, guttural moan that indicates lower-level concern. And there is the unmistakable territorial chatter that experienced backyard observers know well. In a yard where the human is unknown or has been classified as a potential threat, those alarm vocalizations spike whenever the person appears. The chorus of warnings ripple across the trees. In a yard where the human has been integrated as familiar and safe, the calls quiet down.
Not entirely, because squirrels still alarm at hawks, at cats, at dogs, at sudden movements, but the ambient chatter around your specific presence diminishes. Some squirrels go further and produce what observers describe as low conversational sounds in the presence of trusted humans, a kind of soft running commentary that carries none of the urgency of a warning. The next time you step outside in the morning, listen. Are the squirrels going silent the moment you appear, scattering up the trunks and chittering from the high branches? Or do they carry on, foraging, sitting upright on the fence, occasionally glancing at you and then back to whatever they were doing? That sonic landscape is their verdict on you. You can hear what they have decided in the volume of what they choose not to say. Sign number 8. A squirrel chose you. I have saved this one for last because everything we have discussed so far has been about science, about memory, about behavior, about the documented capacities of these animals to recognize and track and communicate about specific humans. And all of that science is real, and all of it is profound. But for many of you watching this, the most important moment with a squirrel did not have anything to do with a study. It happened in a quiet stretch of your life, maybe a hard one, when you stepped out into the yard one morning and one particular squirrel was there. And it kept being there, day after day, in the same spot, at the same time. You started to recognize it. A nick in the ear, a different color in the tail, a way of holding its head. And it started to recognize you, sometimes coming closer than the others, sometimes sitting on the fence post and simply being there with you while you drank your coffee or fed the birds or stood in the grass thinking about someone you missed. There are millions of people who have had this experience. Many of them are widows and widowers. Many of them live alone. Many of them are going through stretches where the animals in the yard are the most reliable company they have on a given day. And again, in the comments and the messages this community shares, the same story comes up. There was a squirrel. It chose me. It came back. I do not want to overclaim the science here. I am not going to tell you the squirrel knows what you are going through. But what I can tell you is this. Squirrels are capable of recognizing specific humans, of remembering specific humans across long stretches of time, and of forming preferences for specific humans within a territory shared with many others. When a squirrel comes back day after day to the same yard, to the same person, when it grows comfortable enough to sit nearby, when it stops treating your presence as a thing to be calculated against, it has, in every meaningful sense available to a small wild animal, chosen you. And if that experience has meant something to you, if it has been a small, steady presence during a stretch of life that needed one, you are not foolish for paying attention to it. You are not alone in feeling that something quiet and good was happening. The wildlife in your yard is not a substitute for the people you love or the people you have lost, but the company is real, the recognition is real. And the small animal that keeps coming back to your yard year after year, season after season, has decided that of all the yards in its territory, yours is the one that matters. Before I go, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want you to answer in the comments below, because the stories this community shares are some of the most moving I have ever read. Has there been a squirrel, or any animal, in your yard that you came to recognize, that came to recognize you, that meant more to you than you would have expected? Tell me about it. What did it look like? When did it start? What was happening in your life at the time? And if anything in this video touched you, if it made you think of someone you know who would understand it, share it with them. Sometimes the right words at the right moment are exactly the thing. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.